Well, it's 12 noon Eastern, and we are live from the Adirondacks, from the game room up above the boathouse. And I thought I'd give you a little view of the lake this morning as we are waiting for people to come on board. There's a kayaker out there. I think I just heard a speedboat. It didn't go by. I'll show you the speedboat. It's through another window. Oh, there it is out there. There we are. Life on a lake. What can I tell you? It's a really beautiful day here in the Adirondacks. It is a little bit on the cool side, which is kind of nice. And I'm Eric Rhoads, publisher of Fine Art Connoisseur and Plein Air magazine. And today we have a special guest. Today we're going to have Peter Trippi, the editor-in-chief of Fine Art Connoisseur magazine. Also makes part of his living as a curator and a writer, and we're going to learn a little bit more about that. But most importantly, he's going to give you his perspectives on the art world and some things that will be important for you to hear. And you'll have a chance to offer your comments and to tune in to ask him questions. I want to say hi to people watching from all over. I see Houston, San Diego, Alabama, Palm Beach Gardens. Gretchen, I used to live in Palm Beach Gardens over in the Hunt Club. Chambersburg, Lincoln City, Oregon. I almost bought a house in Lincoln City, Oregon. Taylorsville, Utah, Philadelphia, Southwest Florida, Northern Italy. All right, Linda, Minneapolis, South Dakota. Let's see, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Canada, Newport News, Norway. Welcome, Norway. And parts all around the world and in between. So soon we're going to get to our moment with editor Peter Trippi, who will be coming on. But first, let me just go through a couple of business items with you so that we get those out of the way. Today, we're giving away a prize of an easel brush clip from easelbrushclip.com, and that gives you an opportunity to hold your brushes so that you can get to them easily, you know, when you're painting. And I don't have one here to show you because I do. Hang on. Yes, I do have one. And the camera got out of whack. So this is an easel brush clip. Essentially, you can clip it on to your easel like that, and then you can put your brushes in there so that they're real easy to get to, real easy to see. And I keep one on my plein air easel at all times, and also on a couple on my studio easels. So we're going to give one of those away for tomorrow. So that's from your comments today. If you're from outside of the U.S., make sure you tell us what country you're from. Okay. Now, the next thing is at 3 p.m. today, we have Daniela Estona, the great Daniela Estona from the Florence Academy in Florence, Italy. And she's going to teach you how to create an elegant still life. And you find that on Facebook or YouTube by searching Streamline Art Video. And just to give you a little bit of a feel for that video, first off, this is what you're going to learn, how she did that still life. And Daniela is a really fun person, lots of fun to be around, and absolutely a joy to hang out with. And so just watching her work and watching her very exuberant Italian personality is very cool. So anyway, that's what you're going to see today at 3 p.m. Now, what else is coming up? Okay, we have, let's see here. We have a winner. Our winner for the prize that we gave away yesterday, my book, Make More Money Selling Your Art, is Sharupa Gupta in Bangalore, India. Thank you for watching all the way in India. It's very great to have this big family of artists all together. And we will be mailing your book to you in India. It may take a couple of days to get there. I'm not sure how long that'll take. But I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you tell your friends about us in India. I want to remind you that we have an event coming up. We'll talk about it with Peter Trippi a little bit too. We have an event coming up called Realism Live. And Realism Live is a conference, online conference. We've got now, I think I heard yesterday, 650 people signed up, maybe more. And it's coming up in October. And so the price increased is August 30th. And so this is a good time to capture it. I want to remind you guys that we're giving away a $6,000 painting. Yes, a painting valued at $6,000 from Carl Dempwolf, the great California impressionist. And you can learn how you can register to win that at paintinggiveaway.com. I'll show you the painting. This is what the page looks like when you go there. Just go to paintinggiveaway.com. You can win that painting, put your information in, and then enter to win. And that way you can have that beautiful handmade frame too, by the way. He makes his own frames. You can have that beautiful painting hanging in your living room. I want to remind you that we have a podcast, a fairly new podcast called the Art Marketing Minute podcast. We talk about art marketing. It's part of the whole art marketing thing. We have artmarketing.com where we have a blog about marketing. I also do Art Marketing Minute at the end of the Plein Air podcast, but I wanted to broaden it and make it available for people who were not necessarily into plein air, because there's so many artists in so many different disciplines. And so I thought I would do that. I want to remind everybody that we are still taking applications for the Great Outdoor Painting Challenge TV show that is coming up. We also are still in the process of raising the funds for that show, but we hope to shoot it now that, or soon after COVID is under control. And if you want to be on the cast, there's an application to be on the cast. And if you're a painter, you might want to do that. It'd be a lot of fun. It'll make you famous, and you're going to be seen by 20 million people per episode. So that's pretty cool. Anyway, I think it's pretty cool. So today I want to introduce you to the editor of a magazine that we produce. It's a magazine that I started years ago. It's called Fine Art Connoisseur. This is the current issue. And the editor of the magazine is a really special guy, and I want to just bring him on now. Please welcome Peter Trippi. Hi, Peter.
Hi. Hi, Eric.
So the remarkable technology. So Peter is actually about 50 feet away from me in another room. But it was a lot easier than having him stand next to me, because we couldn't really look to each other and I couldn't get the controls. And so we decided to do it this way. Peter, welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here, 50 yards away.
We're glad to be anywhere, I would imagine.
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
It's nice and cool here. I love it.
Yeah. So Peter, why don't you give people, a 50,000 foot overview of your career before you joined Fine Art Connoisseur, and then maybe tell people how we connected.
Absolutely. Sure. I come from Washington, D.C. originally. I've always been interested in art because my mother worked at the National Gallery of Art and the Smithsonian Institution. So I thought those were cool places when I was growing up, and they are cool places. I went to college to study art history and history. And that was in Virginia, William and Mary College. And then I studied at New York University and then the Courtauld Institute of Art at the University of London. So I am a trained art historian, and my focus is 19th century British art in terms of what I've worked on mostly when it comes to exhibitions and books. Artists like J.W. Waterhouse, Lawrence Alma-Tadema, James Tissot, and that kind of artist from the very late 19th century. I love that stuff, but I also love art made today, and I love art made in other countries at different times in history. I think that it's important to connect the past and the present, and I've been doing that ever since I graduated from college and graduate school. I worked first as a lobbyist in Washington, D.C. for the arts, representing the National Endowment for the Arts and other organizations on Capitol Hill. Then I went back to school, worked at the Baltimore Museum of Art, then the Brooklyn Museum of Art, and then finally as director of the Dahesh Museum of Art in New York City, where I really focused on 19th century, and then have been editing Fine Art Connoisseur since 2006. I met Eric specifically in 2005 at a dinner party given by a very famous collector. We met there and have kept in touch ever since. Eric kind of got the relationship to the next level when he stopped into my museum in Midtown Manhattan, maybe not even a year later, just to chat. And we began talking about the magazine and how that might be something fun for me to work on. And 14 years later, I'm still here, and I love it.
Hard to believe it.
It's hard to believe. It really is. Yeah.
We were both much younger at that time.
Yes. Although I can't say I had hair then.
I was going to say you had a full head of hair when I met you. You probably lost it when you were about 19, right?
Oh, well, 30. There was a moment.
Well, it's all right. It looks good. It's very distinguished.
I love it.
That's right. Well, I still have mine. It's getting
I'm
thin.
very jealous. Yes.
So Peter, for the people who don't really know this, I've never really spoken much about it. give people an overview of what Fine Art Connoisseur is about, and how it's different from what they might have seen out there.
Sure. Well, certainly, all along, we've been covering art that we believe in. It is not commercially driven. Of course, we have advertising and we think about the wide world of commerce, but we're very much editorial first. And that has been a great privilege to choose art to cover that we really believe in, that we think is excellent. And specifically, we've been focused on art that often gets ignored by other magazines. That would be art of the past and the present, historical and contemporary, that is realist or representational or figurative. There are lots of words used in that terrain. Art that illustrates something, that depicts something recognizable, whether it's a human or a landscape or a still life, an object, a historical narrative, one figure, several figures, and so on, as opposed to abstract art, for example, or installations or conceptual art, which are fine, but not our thing. And what we have found over the last 14 years is that lots and lots of other people are interested in this stuff too. And it has grown in visibility and prestige and value. We're finding more and more artists working in this terrain, and we're glad to be part of that journey. And so we're doing something that most other magazines in the art world don't. We're focusing on that 6 times a year. And basically, we have been blessed to watch all this talent flowing out, and we highlight it where we can, as we can. And encourage it.
It's really interesting to me anyway. When you and I first met, one of the reasons we connected is because we both had this passion for what I like to call realism or classical realism, representational art, and a lot of people were just beginning to kind of bring that back. Now that there was kind of a U.S. movement. Starting in Minneapolis, for instance, that kind of blossomed into, a small little smattering of people. But and when I started the magazine, when you joined the magazine, there were very few people who were teaching this classical realism, if you will. I'll bet there were 3 or 4, maybe not that many, and there weren't very many students. And yet today, look at what has happened. I mean, there are probably now 100 or more schools. There probably are 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 young people who are studying in these schools. And there are artists now who have graduated these schools, who have created their own schools, who are painting every bit as good as some of the people who led the way 400 years ago.
Absolutely. That's right. That's exactly why we're so happy to be in this position of covering those artists. It's great.
And I think that you and I have had a goal of kind of being the standard bearer for realism, and that's not all we do in the magazine, clearly. And we cover both the looser side of things and the tighter side of things, but we really are trying to guide people in terms of their careers and move them forward, which is why we started the FACE conference. You want to talk about that just a little bit?
Absolutely. FACE stands for Figurative Art Convention and Expo. That launched in 2017 in Miami. And it was a great joy to bring together 400 colleagues, kindred spirits from all around the world, who were not only offering technical skills through demos, but also lots of lively panel conversations and lectures on the themes that we've just been discussing now. It's great to get everyone in one building and talk it through and watch the masters at work. And
now,
that's
why is that important? Because you and I talked about the importance of creating this gathering so that we could further the movement. Do you want to address that?
Well, I think it's really important to be together, to realize that there are other folks doing what you do or what you believe in. Of course, in any field, you want to learn from the masters. You want to see how they do it. You pick up skills and ideas and you take them forward. But also, there's just such comfort in knowing that you're not alone, that other people care about the same things you do. And that is what conferences have always delivered. And this had never been addressed in our field. Basically, realism had been floating around on its own, independent, studio to studio, academy to academy, all across the country, across the world, in no coherent way. Now, it's important to point out, Eric, that there was a whole system in place up until about 1940. There were academies and ateliers, but that was all dismantled by modernism in the mid-20th century. And it really has never been replaced until now. So we're really pleased to be part of that.
Well, the other idea behind Face is it would be like you remember there was a chocolate company called the Whitman Sampler or something that you could kind of try one of each. But people told me after attending, we did it how many years in a row now? Four,
Three.
three.
Right. Yeah.
And what people told me is that they had not, they had gone to a particular atelier and they were pretty much dogmatic about this is the way you do this. And they then were going and studying under other people and finding out there were other ways to approach things or different solutions to problems they might not have thought of. And they got a chance to, to see all different approaches, from the loose approaches to the tight approaches to the glazing to, everything in between. And it really informed them more, but they also got a chance to collaborate. And I can't tell you how many people who have told me, I met so-and-so, 2 or 3 guys, we sat around in a bar and we started talking, and then we decided to put a show together. We didn't even know each other before all of this. And so everything really came together and I think really has helped kind of kickstart that movement in some ways.
Absolutely. It's an important chapter in the development of the field, and it's been great to be involved in that. These are nice people who get it, who don't have to have someone explain to them why this is important, and you sort of go from there. And I love that idea of collaborations that occur after we all say goodbye at the end of the 4 days. That's fine. That's what conferences are for in every field.
People are making friends and staying in touch, and also, to see galleries showing up and finding new artists for their galleries, things like that. I think it's just really powerful.
Very powerful. Yeah. And it is something we believe in.
Yeah. So we launched for the conference a competition called the Artist and Selfie Competition with the idea of creating a new history. Can you touch on the idea of, people were doing self-portraits in the past and how we have kind of lost that now in modern history?
Sure. It's so true that when we think about all the greats in art history, from the Renaissance masters to Van Gogh and onward, we see that they are using their very cheapest model themselves. They're able to look in the mirror and paint themselves or sculpt themselves because that is something that is always there. Obviously, they love painting other people and animals and other subjects too, but the self-portrait is a very important theme in terms of self-awareness and also in terms of convenience. What we found is that tradition, although it lives on through the 20th century, had gone a little bit weak in our terrain, in the realist terrain. There wasn't much of an incentive for artists to be doing those because there was a perception that it was somehow self-absorbed or it wouldn't be commercially successful, etc. So here we went and said, let's go ahead and revisit that theme and encourage people to submit their self-portraits to this competition. And obviously, the word selfie is very important now through the digital world. We're not proposing digital images, but we recognize that the selfie phase of our time is very much tapping into that notion of looking at yourself and trying to make sense of yourself and put yourself across.
Well, and for generations, there were no photographs. And so artists, the only way they could be remembered or represented was to be painted. And so this competition allows, we have 4 entry categories: self-portraits, portraits are paintings of other artists, because we love looking through history at, there's a great painting of, I think it is Monet and friends, and they're gathered around an easel. There's other paintings of other artists. So we have a category of other artists. We have a category of people painting outdoors in plein air. So artist painting artists, if you will, and then art studios. So because there's so many lovely paintings of documenting the spaces that people worked in or the exteriors of those spaces. And so we're really trying to create a new history, if you will, and say the artists of 2020 really need to be doing these things, because the photographs are on hard drives that will crash and disappear, and their grandkids will never find them. But the paintings will, they'll live on. I mean, nobody ever throws away a painting unless you're an artist, and then you throw them away if you don't like them. So anyway, that is going on, and of course we were going to do the award at the FACE conference, but now we've had to pull the plug on the FACE conference this year in Baltimore because of COVID. So we actually, for the Artist and Selfie competition, we're going to announce a new deadline date so that people have a little bit more time to enter that, and then we'll probably give that away next year at the FACE conference. But talk to me now about the vision on Realism Live, which we actually came up with before we had canceled the FACE conference. We're going to hold the FACE conference next year in Williamsburg, assuming we're allowed. But what did we learn from Plein Air Live, and what is the vision now for Realism Live?
Yes, certainly. This is where, invention coming out of necessity. It's a fact that we want to be together still, that even if we can't be together in person safely, let's go ahead and get together online. And that's exactly what Plein Air Live success proved, that people were hungry for that. Those same ideas of demos, of learning how great masters work, and also of conversing with each other about ideas that are pertinent to a particular field. That worked beautifully with Plein Air Live. A bigger number of attendees than had ever attended one of the Plein Air Convention and Expo events, just because it's easier. People can be at home, safe and sound, and tap in and get the same high level of teaching and encounter. Now, we'll be very honest here. It is not the same as sitting in a bar after all the sessions are over. I mean, that cannot be reproduced fully, and we want to go back to our live events next year, and we will. But in the meantime, it makes a lot of sense to try and push this out further. And it's just not about numbers. It's also about worldwide representation. Plein Air Live confirmed that people could tap in from all around the world. They would never be able to get to a particular city in the United States for various reasons of expense or convenience. And we're going to do the same now with Realism Live in October. I'm looking forward to that because we're going to see a lot of familiar faces, people who are great teachers that we know and love, have covered in the magazine before. And also we're going to see lots of new friends online who live in foreign countries or other parts of the United States that we haven't been to before. And that will be a joy. I'm really looking forward to that mixing of kindred spirits.
The thing that was the biggest surprise to me, we would do breakout rooms in Plein Air Live, and these breakout rooms would, even though we had, I don't know, close to 1,500 people, we had breakout rooms of 6 or 8 people. And so we would have 20-minute breaks where they could go into these breakout rooms and get familiar with those people and get to know each other. And it really worked really well. And people actually told us that turned out to be their favorite part because they were meeting new people, connecting, and then keeping those connections alive in the private Facebook group. And then we had the cocktail party at the end of the day where we all kind of chatted and I interviewed different people, but we also had people painting live together. And we're going to be doing that in Realism Live as well. So we'll have live models. I was working on that this morning, getting that all arranged. And so people, there are a lot of people who never have the benefit of being able to paint from a model. So we're going to have models that you can paint and you don't have to be uncomfortable. We're not going to take their clothes off because we don't want to do it. We think in a broadcast environment it would be inappropriate, but there might be a little skin showing, but nothing like we might do in a private setting. But I think the idea is, when I first was learning how to paint with a model, I was very uncomfortable. And this to me is a really nice alternative because they're not seeing me, but I'm seeing them. And I always felt like I was staring and it was just a little weird, but it's nice to be able to do that. And we'll do some things with some quick gesture drawings and so on. And then we'll do some long poses. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Absolutely great. That's a very smart solution to this challenge. And as you say, it's actually got extra benefits that a live event can't.
So I'm going to pull up, you probably won't be able to see it, maybe you will, but I'm going to pull up a couple of slides. If you could just speak to a couple of the faculty members that we already have. Now, Peter and I met this morning and yesterday, and we determined the rest of the faculty. We've already invited some others, but we've got a couple holes we had to fill. And so we've got some world-class people. We can't announce names, of course, until we know they're going to be there. But speak to each of these painters, if you will, for just a second. Tell us a little bit about Daniel Sprick.
Oh, well, Dan Sprick is a great genius. He is, well, one of the leaders in realism today, full stop, anywhere in the world, although he happens to live in Colorado. This is a fine example, this image that you see here, the way that he's able to make the human figure so immediate, so tactile. And yet, if you look closely, and it's hard to do perhaps in a small image, we also see touches of abstraction, the way that he's able to zoom in on the figure and then leave parts of the surface unattended or very loosely worked, so that we know that he's living in our time. This is not in any way trying to be some past master, whether it's Rembrandt or a Renaissance Italy figure. This is clearly art of our time. These are modern faces, and he's got modern props like the cars in the background, for example, the sunglasses on the figure at left. Dan just gets it right every time, no matter what he's attempting to depict. It could be a still life, it could be human figures. It's always intriguing, a very unusual view of the world.
All right, next we have Rose Franson. Tell us a little bit about Rose.
Rose is extraordinary as a chronicler of American life. She is based in Iowa. She has won a lot of fame for her focus on the people of Iowa, and in particular her own town. She's had major exhibitions at the National Portrait Gallery in Washington and elsewhere. She is clearly, as you can see here, a master of figure painting, but there's also a perceptiveness in her portraiture, the way that she can capture nuance in the face through brushstroke, but also through composition, the way she's setting things up. She really is an incredible communicator as well, an absolutely outstanding teacher who gets people very excited and on board with her vision, her particular artistic vision, not just her technical talents.
All right, next we have Joshua Larocque.
Josh Larocque, great talent on the younger side of things, based in Texas. Superb figure painter, classically trained, very meticulous approach in terms of the way he draws and then builds up the surface with paint. He is, I would say, quite romantic, although he's classically trained. There is a kind of a gentle, somewhat ethereal effect to his work. The lighting is cool and a little moody, and also there's a kind of sweet effect to the handling. That everything seems very not misty, but delicate. And that is something very special. He is a master of chiaroscuro, to get technical about it. That's a Renaissance technique of managing the darks and the lights and the shadows. He's got it right every time. Absolutely genius.
All right, Graydon Parrish. Tell me about Graydon.
Graydon Parrish, also from Texas. Great talent in drawing and painting. He has been on the scene for a very long time, although he's not old by any means. I don't think he's even 50. The fact is that Graydon has won great fame for major pictures like this one, which are multi-figure, enormous in scale. This one, which is a commemoration of 9/11, is in the New Britain Museum of American Art in Connecticut. Graydon is also a world-renowned expert on color, especially the Munsell color system. He understands how to manage color as very few professionals do. He likes to talk about that a great deal. He's also a collector of Bouguereau and other French academicians. So he has a very refined sense of art history and how it can inform art being made today, as we see here in this masterpiece.
All right, so I got two more for you, and then I won't put you on the spot anymore. Juliet Aristides.
Juliet, such a talent, based in Washington State, in Seattle. Juliet is a master draftsman and painter, a great teacher who, in fact, runs her own atelier in Seattle. Juliet has published many books on the techniques behind her drawing and painting. These are big sellers across the world. That I feel like at the core of her practice is drawing. that she absolutely knows what she's doing and can draw almost anything impeccably from any angle, as you can see here. And that really makes every subsequent touch a success because she's building on a very strong base. She has absorbed the Renaissance masters and made their techniques her own.
And I think we're going to have her teaching drawing, if I remember correctly.
That's right.
Yeah. All right. Daniel Gerhardt's.
Yes. Dan Gerhardt's based in Wisconsin, very well known for his figure paintings, which are more impressionistic in their approach. He does know how to draw like a master, but he also then lays over rich coloring that is more wide-ranging, not as limited as some of the more classical palettes, and also a touch that is more, let's say, Sargent, more Zorn, more Sorolla, if you will, but never in any way derivative. The scenes are lyrical, very often real models posing in what we might call antique or historical costumes or settings that are evoking a past time without copying any previous master. Absolutely wonderful management of light and shadow, as we see here.
So, well, thank you for that. Any final words on Realism Live?
I just can't wait. I think it's going to be terrific. It's something new for us in terms of the format, but it is absolutely familiar to us when it comes to that sense of camaraderie and kindred spirits. We're going to be together again, and that's exactly what we need this year more than ever.
Absolutely. We absolutely need to be together. So I want to open it up to some questions. I don't know if you can see the comments or not, whether or not you can. I doubt it, but I will, if I see some questions come in for you, I will. But I think we talked the other day just briefly, and I addressed this. We talked about one of the problems that you have with artists when you're trying to do articles on them. It has to do with something simple like their birth date. Do you want to address that real quickly?
Sure, absolutely. You know, the comment that I made to Eric was to do with a particular challenge, which is to pry out of artists their birth year, not their date, their year. I was born in 1965, full disclosure. And the fact is that matters to me as an editor because I see you artists today as part of a continuum of art history. And so when we're publishing an article, whether it's a feature article or just an announcement section, we want to include with every illustration, not only the title, the medium, the dimensions, the source where the work of art can be purchased, but also the date in which the artist was born, the year, because that sets up a context. Is this a very young person? Is this someone who's more senior? It helps us understand the image better. We are not trying to be nosy. We're trying to put you in the context of art history. And that, I think, is something that a lot of artists today are too modest to recognize, that they're not just, passing through. They are part of art history because they're making objects that will be around for thousands of years. That's pretty powerful stuff. And we want to record that because our magazine will be around a long time, too, as a record of this field.
Absolutely. It's remarkable. I just bought you and I were at an auction house together in Edinburgh, and there was a complete set of Studio magazine, which was a magazine from the, 1930s, 1920s, whatever it was. And it would be the equivalent of Fine Art Connoisseur today, but there were hundreds of volumes from, a couple of decades. And I bought the entire set, and I plan to read every issue and every magazine and read the stories and just use that in some of my leisure time because I have so much of that. And really the same thing will happen is, our magazines are in the archives of museums. They're in the archives of galleries, collections, so they will be referred to for generations to come, hopefully.
Absolutely. And we're very proud when artists who are featured in the magazine push that article out into the world too, because that's an ad hoc way of making an impression. It is not in any way egotistical on their part. It's just establishing the fact that we are part of a conversation that goes over many, many years.
Yeah. So here's a question from Kyer Pierce, who says, is the realism event focused mostly on the human figure, or will there be other subjects like landscapes and still life?
The whole gamut. Absolutely. I'm glad you asked that question. It will be figures for sure, but also still life and landscape. Absolutely. We will have master artists showing you their techniques in those genres too.
Yeah, still life, landscape, portrait, figure. I think we have seascape, possibly. We have a little bit of everything. And then on Beginner's Day, we have people who are teaching the very basics, and they're going to assume that there's no knowledge. In other words, they're going to assume that you're going into that Beginner's Day never having drawn a portrait or never having painted a landscape or a still life. And they're going to give you a basic foundational principles so that when you decide, if you decide to watch the rest of the programs the next 4 days, that you will be able to essentially have a foundational understanding so that you'll be able to not be confused when you see the rest of it.
Very smart.
Yeah. Okay, so let's see if there's another question here. I wanted to ask you real quickly about the impact of COVID from your perspective as an art historian. What are we going to be looking back upon?
Well, I mean, number one, as an observer of this field, I'm very excited to say that lots of good work is being made this year. It is a tragedy what has unfolded this year. On the other hand, a lot of people have been sequestered in their studios, not distracted by the usual comings and goings of life. And that is what it is. And they have then turned their attention and their energy to making art. And there's a lot of stuff now stacking up in studios in every different medium you can imagine. And we now need to find places for that art to be seen, whether it's in publications like ours or on the walls of exhibitions, etc. That is a challenge, but it's a challenge we're up to. And I think that's going to be really interesting to see as the country and the world reopens bit by bit. I'll also point out, Eric, that a lot of the art is touching upon themes that are important to people today, whether it's images of people wearing masks, for example, or images of equity in society. There's a lot of that. But there's also a lot of, for example, still life, which is, timeless, a beautiful arrangement of fruit and flowers is as relevant now as it was ever. And so we're seeing that whole gamut, and we're going to pay attention to that in Fine Art Connoisseur. And I dare say that in Realism Live, that will be coming up in our dialogues and panel discussions.
Here's a question from Jennifer Hunter who says, do you think watercolor will someday be considered as an equal value to oil paintings with collectors?
Okay. Well, gosh, I mean, I see it as a complete equal all the time. That's me. And I think Eric would agree. The fact is that it's true that in the commercial marketplace, there has often been the poor cousin aspect to watercolor because somehow it's on paper, it's more translucent, it's somehow not perceived as frame-worthy. I think that's nonsense. I mean, when we think about the great watercolors of the past, whether it's John Singer Sargent or Anders Zorn or J.M.W. Turner, that's great art, full stop. And that idea that it's somehow lesser is just ridiculous. This is a strange holdover from past ways of looking at art, and I regret that very much. And I should point out that we cover watercolor all the time in Fine Art Connoisseur. Our next issue, out September 1st, has an entire 4-page article on the National Watercolor Society. And in fact, the image on the cover will be a watercolor. So we are fully in the game of watercolor, and we believe in it always.
Yeah, and also, the paints are more archival than they were 50 years ago. Things have changed, and so a lot of people are hanging on to some old threads that are no longer valid. There's a question from Dennis Marshall who says, if all that you can do is the Beginner's Day and have painting experience, would you recommend signing up? This is about Realism Live.
Your thoughts on that, Eric? I don't know what to say exactly. I mean, I think it's great value in the Beginner's Day.
Well, first off, I think the problem is some people will have scheduling conflicts, and that's why we offer replays. So we have 3 different levels of replays offered. There's a general admission, there's a premier, and then there's a VIP. The VIP is for a full year. Each one is different levels, so you can have those replays. And then what we did after, because so many people wanted to go back to replays, is we offered upgrades throughout so people could get more replays if they wanted to. And I've had people who have said, you know, I've watched the replay 3 or 4 times and I got new things out of it each time. So Dennis, I think the answer to that is you've got to do what's right for you, but don't miss it because you have a conflict, because you'll be able to go back to it, and it'll feel very much like the live experience. The only thing that won't feel live is when you're interacting with people in the breakout rooms, but you'll be able to still observe some of that. And I think that you wouldn't want to miss it. But if you're not a beginner, you probably don't need Beginner's Day. But we do have some really brilliant people in Beginner's Day that will only be on Beginner's Day, and you'll still learn a lot from them. You know, we're all learning all the time. And one thing that I got out of this is, of course, I hosted it, but I watched the whole thing, and I found that even on Beginner's Day, I've been painting for 20 years, but I still was picking up tips that I had never before discovered. So I think it's worthwhile, and it's also a really great kind of way to test it out. Make sure you get your Zoom call set up right. I mean, it's not all on Zoom. Part of it's on Zoom, but most of it's not, because we want a better technology than that. Let's see if I got any more questions for you. Let's see here. Some exhibits require white mats for watercolor. Others fit the matte color to the painting, just like frames. So that's a comment. Okay, let's see if I can find any. I use the library app Libby. Can I find any of these art magazines on Libby? They have an extensive magazine selection to download. I have no idea, quite frankly. I've never heard that.
I don't know that one, I'm afraid. It's possible. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we don't know who picks us up.
You know, for $40, you can have your own subscription.
Right.
Okay, here's one that says, what about casein being valued as a medium as well? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Not strongly. I mean, we certainly have illustrated casein works in the magazine. I've not looked at that as being apart from other media, really. I mean, it's about the image as far as I'm concerned.
That's how I feel too. A great painting is a great painting.
Absolutely. Let me be clear. Of course, there are specialist societies across the field, like Pastel Society of America. They, by nature, have to focus on pastel. But we look at that and mix it in with oil and watercolor on a regular basis. In fact, our Today's Master Portfolio section, every issue, addresses a theme such as skies or horses, and it's every possible medium all together, page after page. We don't do anything about that except indicate in the caption exactly what you're looking at.
Gabriel Stockton says, what stories are you looking for artists to send in for the magazines?
We're open to everything, absolutely everything. If it's just about your own work, tell us. We'll take a look and see if we can fit that in a future issue. If it's a theme that you've noticed that's coming up in the world, you know, whether it's a subject matter or an approach, a technique, tell us. We're very easy to find. My email address is on the website. It's also in the masthead of the magazine. I'm not hiding away. And we also respond with thank you, or yes, we will follow up, or let's talk a little more. You have to understand that we do 6 issues per year, so not everything happens right away. If there is breaking news, we're happy to receive it, and we may be able to push it out in one of our weekly e-newsletters. Those are much more current, you know, ripped from the headlines, things that people can act upon right away. So we can always find a format that is going to work for a particular story or lead.
I will also tell you that I can't use names in this particular instance, but I remember there was back early on, there was an artist who was getting a lot of attention, and a lot of people were doing a lot of things with this artist. And I came to Peter and I said, Peter, what about this artist? And he said, he's not ready for Fine Art Connoisseur yet. He's not developed enough to be a featured artist. You know, he could be perhaps in a section in the back for something or something else. But so if you get featured in Fine Art Connoisseur, you are what Peter Trippi considers to be ready. And that's not snobbery. that's his training at work. And that's how we ended up together, as a matter of fact, because I had another editor at one time, and this editor and I were disagreeing about the quality of an image. I don't mean the technical quality, but I felt the image was just a little too wrong for our audience, a little too commercial. And her opinion was that it was right. And quite frankly, I didn't trust my own instincts enough, because I didn't go to the Courtauld Institute. So I went in to see Peter and said, how do I deal with these issues? How do we break these ties? And he said, well, you want a trained curator, because curators know and understand these things. And really, we're the only art publication in the world, I believe, that has a trained curator who is the editor. And so the other issue, Peter, is, and we talked about this earlier today, there's a lot of trickery going on in exchange for money. And we won't play that game. And what I mean by that is that there are people, no names mentioned, and we're not trying to slam these people. It's just that we don't believe in this. And that is that if an art publication like ours said, sure, we'll put you on the cover if you buy 10 ads, or you buy an ad, or we'll put an article in the magazine if you buy an ad, then all of a sudden we're telling our readers something that's not true. That it would be one thing if it was someone that we selected that would have been in anyway. But if we selected someone who had money but no talent, or maybe not enough talent, then what we would be doing is lying to our public, pretending that they were quote unquote good enough in exchange for money. And then what happens is that over time, the readers start to distrust us, because we're telling them it's good, and their radar is up and saying, you know what, this isn't good. I don't think these people know what they're doing. And so I think that this is a fine line. Do you want to address that at all?
Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you, it's right in the name of the magazine. The word connoisseur, it's a $20 word, and sometimes it can be clumsy, but the fact is it really means to know and to see at the same time. That's paraphrasing, of course. It's a French word, but that is at the heart of what we do. You're not just seeing, you're knowing. You discern. You are able to distinguish between good, better, best. And that is something that connoisseurs do, or experts, or scholars, or take your pick, curator. Not everyone do it. And it's not about snobbery. It's about training the eye. It's like that in every walk of life. There are people who do it good, better, best. It could be a doctor with a scalpel, or someone who runs a race. That's okay. We need to recognize each other's strengths and weaknesses. And so all we're trying to do is put out the very best in front of other people's eyes. And we're trying to take away the junk and not pretend like everything is equal, because it simply is not. We believe in equal opportunity, that every artist should get a chance to be seen by me or my team. We want that incoming stream, but frankly, not everyone is going to make the grade for this particular magazine. That doesn't mean you should.
And it goes to the same issue of and maybe this is a dialogue we shouldn't have, but it goes to the issue of selection of people for the stage, at our conferences or other things. And we will hear, and I want to be balanced. I want to be equal. But if I'm putting someone on a stage because of a particular thing that we're trying to be equal in, but they're not necessarily, they don't have the chops. Again, it comes back down to being distrusted, because, why is this lower quality painter on the stage? It has nothing to do with, who they are. So I think, how do we deal with those issues? Because, there's a lot of issues, with women who are coming into their own, and they're not getting noticed as much. Can you address any of that?
We are, as I said, open to all incoming queries, images, all of it. We look at it all, and we try to tune out those other characteristics or aspects and look at the art itself. The image needs to do the work. And the good news about our kind of art is that it doesn't necessarily need a long essay next to it. We may provide it with context, but Realism speaks for itself. Is the image well drawn? Is it beautifully balanced with light and shadow and so on? I'll compare that for a minute with abstraction, where there is perhaps more of a formal set of concerns or something going on in the artist's imagination that needs some unpacking and explanation. That's fine, good for them, but that's not what we do. So we have that advantage of letting the image lead the way. And whether it's a woman or a man or a person from another country or from the United States, it kind of doesn't matter. Now, some of this appears, of course, in the imagery itself. It might be a particular medium that's particular to a specific region, or a particular imagery set, a locale that looks, to some people exotic or foreign. That's okay. That's all very welcome, as long as it's done well. And part of that, Eric, is about the artist hitting the intended goal. Now, of course, we're not mind readers. We don't know exactly what every artist is seeking, but we can see when the format, the form, the color, the light, and so on goes along nicely with the content, that is put across in a coherent and equal-handed way. To try and get any more specific than that is pointless. To draw up a list of criteria is stupid, because every work of art is unique. We cannot apply rules to these things, because then it just becomes deadened and very, very dull. We want you to be as creative as possible wherever you live and whoever you are. For it.
I have two last questions, then we're going to go. One question is a quick answer. This is a question, I can't find the name, but is impressionism considered realism?
Absolutely, yes. In the sense that historically there has been this kind of distinction made between Courbet's realism and Monet's impressionism. Yeah, okay, sure, that's to do with 19th century France. But the fact is that impressionist art, it's a technique, it's an approach aesthetically, but it is depicting a real thing, a real place. And we welcome it. We absolutely look at that as seriously as we would something that is very tightly drawn.
Okay, so the last question is a two-part question. Number one is, what do you collect? And number two is, what would you buy if you had endless amounts of money?
Well, because I don't have endless amounts of money, I buy a lot of contemporary realism. I usually am buying from benefit auctions, things that are supporting clubs and organizations that I admire, whether it's the Salmagundi Club in New York City or EcoPow, which was a short-term project that did exchanges of artists between the United States and China, and they needed people to help get the funding going for the travel. Those have been wonderful opportunities to help, but also to get something great in return that I can hang on my wall. I collect painting and sculpture and drawings and prints. I've just been going through my art collection during the lockdown and sort of reminding myself of how fun some of this has been. If I had endless amounts of money, I would buy, in addition to contemporary realism, 19th century British art of the kind that I've studied. I would go and get myself a Waterhouse or an Alma Tadema for several $100,000 because I just enjoy that kind of art so much.
Yeah, and you wrote the book on Waterhouse.
Yes, the main monograph that is in print from 2002, I authored. It's about 250 pages.
Yeah,
still in print.
Congratulations on that. And you just came out with an essay and another book on Tissot.
Yes, that's an exhibition.
Peter, thank you for being on today. People are enjoying this so much. We'll do this again sometime. I'm going to pull you off and then wrap up with everybody. But we're going to see you on partially hosting with me on Realism Live. And so we'll get a lot more of you and your thoughts at that time. So thank you so much. Happy summer.
Thank you.
And happy birthday, by the way.
Thank you.
All right. That was Peter Trippi, editor-in-chief of Fine Art Connoisseur magazine. We've been together for 14 years now, and I just feel blessed every day I talk to him because he's the real deal. And to have someone of that level at a magazine like ours, we're just very, very fortunate. And we're thankful that he's willing to stick with us too. So I appreciate your comments, and remember, you can win a prize from your comments. And so we'll be giving away tomorrow an easel brush clip. A reminder that today at 3 p.m., the great Daniela Estona, fun, you're going to enjoy this, from Italy, is going to talk to you about doing an elegant still life. I personally filmed this one in Italy. I went over to Italy and worked with her. We also filmed Daniel Graves from the Florence Academy at the same time. Both a lot of fun. Reminder that you can follow me, Eric Rhoads, with an A and no E, at Instagram and Facebook. That would be helpful. Today's prize winner was Sherpa Gupta in Bangalore, India. Congratulations, you're getting my book, Make More Money Selling Your Art. A reminder that Realism Live has a price increase on August 30th. It's going up $100, and we're already at 655 people, I think. So keep on coming on. It's already bigger than last year's FACE conference. You can win a $6,000 Carl Dempwolf landscape painting. He did the frame too. It's at paintinggiveaway.com. It's in the month of August. A couple other things. We're now opening up the next competition for this month for plein air salon competition. It has 20 categories, including, not all are plein air. Some are landscape, some are still life, etc. And you can enter that before the end of the month. We have the artist and selfie competition that Peter and I talked about, and you can do that as well. So thanks again to Peter Trippi, and thank you for you guys for watching. I'm Eric Rhoads, publisher of Fine Art Connoisseur and Plein Air magazine, among other things. And so I appreciate you watching today, and I'll check in on the comments at the end of the day and get in touch with you guys. Thanks again. Bye.